The vastness of space stretched out before the human fleet like an endless sea, filled with stars that flickered in the distance. The ships moved in perfect formation, their engines humming as they traveled through the unknown reaches of the galaxy. Captain Jack Riker, a young soldier and officer, stood at the command deck of the lead ship, his hands clasped behind his back, eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. Earth had come a long way in its journey across the stars. What once was a planet of primitive human beings had now become a budding force in the galaxy, eager to explore new worlds, meet new species, and secure its place among the stars. But this mission, unlike any other before it, was different. Jack and his team had been chosen to investigate a mysterious alien empire that had made no contact with Earth. Yet its presence was felt across the galaxy. Rumors of this alien empire had spread across neighboring star systems for years. It was a race known as the Nilaxians, and their leader was none other than Queen Azira, a ruler who had built an empire that spanned across countless planets. The Nilaxian Empire was said to be invincible, having conquered all who stood in their way. Yet not a single human had ever set foot in their territory, and no one truly knew what kind of empire lay beyond the veil of their borders. "We've reached the edge of their space," said Lieutenant Sarah Green, the ship's communications officer. She was a sharp-minded officer, always quick to analyze data, and she shared Jack's curiosity about what lay ahead. Jack nodded, glancing at the view screen. "Prepare the ship for entry. We've come this far, and we're not turning back." The fleet of Earth ships slowed as they approached a strange and mysterious energy field. It shimmered in space, a barrier unlike anything they had ever encountered. The barrier was invisible, but it radiated with immense power. The moment their ships touched the outer edge of this field, alarms blared across the fleet. It felt as though they had hit a wall made of pure energy. "Captain, we're receiving." "A transmission?" Sarah called out urgently. "Put it on screen," Jack ordered, his voice steady despite the rising tension. A holographic image flickered to life in front of them. The image was hazy at first, but as the transmission stabilized, it revealed a striking figure, a tall, regal, alien woman with purple skin and glowing eyes. She was surrounded by a dark, imposing backdrop, a vast and intimidating space station. The alien's voice came through clearly, though there was an air of disdain in her tone. "Who dares approach the borders of the Nilaxian Empire?" she demanded, her voice powerful and commanding. "You humans are not welcome here." Jack's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the first contact with the Nilaxians. He had read about them, in reports, but now he was face to face with their queen, and her presence was enough to make anyone feel small. "We come in peace," Jack said, standing tall. "I am Captain Jack Riker of the United Earth Fleet. We seek only knowledge and peaceful exchange." The Queen's eyes narrowed, studying him with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. "Peace?" She laughed softly, a chilling sound that echoed through the ship. "You think you can just waltz into my domain and ask for peace? Humans are weak, and your kind are no match for the Nilaxian Empire." Jack held his ground, determined not to show any fear. He had seen battles, fought in wars, and faced enemies who were much stronger than him. But this was different. The weight of the moment, the sheer power of the alien queen, pressed down on him. "All we ask is to learn from your people," Jack continued. "We are explorers, not invaders. We only wish to understand your culture and share knowledge. We believe the universe can be a better place if we work together." For a moment, the Queen remained silent, her glowing eyes locking onto Jack's. There was something about him that intrigued her, something she couldn't explain. It wasn't his words. It was his presence. She could sense a power in him, a force she had never encountered before. It made her hesitate, but then she regained her composure, a smile playing at the corners of her lips. "You are foolish, human. I have heard of your kind, but you are nothing compared to the might of the Nilaxians. I should destroy your ships right now, but I'll give you one chance. Turn back. Leave now, and I may spare your lives." Jack's heart raced. He had been prepared for hostility, but not this level of cold cruelty. The Queen's words were like a warning, an ironclad decree that should have made him retreat. But something in Jack stirred, a deep sense of defiance. "We won't turn back," Jack said firmly, his voice unwavering. "We came here to learn, and if you will not offer us peace, then we will learn the hard way." The Queen's eyes flared with anger. "So be it. You will regret this, human." The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the humans in stunned silence. The fleet commander, Admiral Thomas, stood behind Jack, his face grim. "Captain, what now?" Jack turned to face him, his expression hard. "We move forward. Prepare the fleet for entry. We are going to learn everything we can about this empire, whether they like it or not." As the Earth fleet slowly advanced, crossing the mysterious energy barrier, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that they had just made a terrible mistake. The Queen's final words echoed in his mind. "You will regret this," but one thing was certain. There was no turning back now. The Earth had entered the heart of the Nilaxian Empire, and their fate was in the hands of a queen who might very well have the power to destroy them all. The Earth fleet slowly passed through the shimmering barrier and entered the heart of the Nilaxian Empire. What greeted them was nothing like the peaceful, quiet space they had expected. Instead, it was a world of steel and power, where enormous, alien ships patrolled the skies and massive space stations floated like silent giants. The ships in the fleet moved cautiously, not knowing what to expect. Jack Riker stood at the helm of the flagship, his mind focused, his eyes scanning the dark void ahead. "Captain, we are being guided to a landing dock," Lieutenant Sarah Green reported, her voice tense as she watched the communications feed. "It appears they are expecting us." Jack nodded, trying to steady his nerves. This was the moment of truth. The fleet had come in peace, but they had already seen the Queen's harsh attitude. Now they were about to meet her face to face. The ships landed in a vast docking bay on a colossal space station, its surface covered in strange symbols that none of the humans recognized. The air was thick with a sense of ancient power and cold authority. Jack stepped off the ship, his boots clicking on the cold metal floor as he led his team of officers through the dark corridors. Alien soldiers, their sharp eyes following every move, stood at attention along the walls. They were tall, armored, and silent. "We need to stay calm," Jack muttered to himself as they approached the throne room. They passed through several grand chambers before they reached a massive hall. At the center of the room was a tall, imposing throne made of dark, gleaming material. Queen Isira was seated upon it, her regal posture and commanding presence filling the room with an almost tangible pressure. She was unlike any human woman. Her skin was a deep shade of purple, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Her beauty was breathtaking, yet her gaze was cold and calculating, like a predator sizing up its prey. She stood as they entered, her long, flowing robes trailing behind her. The silence in the room was deafening as she looked down at the humans, her eyes scanning them one by one before landing on Jack. Her lips curled into a small, almost amused smile. "So the humans have come to visit," Queen Isira's voice was, smooth but full of power, carrying across the room like a whisper that could shatter stone. "Tell me, Captain Riker, what is it that brings you to my empire?" Jack didn't flinch under her gaze. "We come seeking knowledge, Your Majesty. We want to understand your people and your ways. We come in peace." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Peace?" she repeated slowly as though tasting the word. "You dare come to my empire and speak of peace, and yet you come with warships in tow invading my borders. Do you think I am a fool?" Jack held his ground. "We didn't come to fight. We came to learn," To communicate. We are not enemies unless you make us one. The queen studied him, her eyes flicking over his features. There was something about him that was different, something she could not quite place. She had seen many beings in her long life, but there was something unsettling about the way his eyes locked onto hers, full of unwavering confidence. "You do not understand, human," she said, her tone growing colder. "You are nothing but a speck in the galaxy. You may think you have the power to challenge my empire, but I assure you, you are mistaken." Jack didn't respond right away. He could feel the weight of her words, the pressure of her power bearing down on him. But there was something more, something in the air, in the way the queen had spoken to him, that hinted at a deeper fear. "You are mistaken, Your Majesty," Jack said after a long pause, his voice steady. "It is not power we seek. It is understanding." The queen's gaze darkened, and her lips twisted into a tight smile. "Understanding? Your kind seeks understanding. But what you will find here is nothing but destruction. Do you truly think that you can change the course of the galaxy with your naivety? My empire has existed for centuries. I have crushed countless civilizations who thought the same." Jack didn't flinch, his expression unchanged. "Perhaps, but you have never met someone like me." The queen's eyes widened, just for a moment, before she quickly masked her surprise. "I don't know what game you are playing, Captain Riker, but know this. You will not leave this place unscathed." Jack's heart beat faster, but he kept his composure. This was the moment. He had to stand strong, not only for himself, but for his crew, for Earth. He would not let fear take over. As the silence stretched between them, the queen finally waved her hand, dismissing the guards. "You may stay here for now, human, but remember this: you are in my domain. Your every move will be watched, and your fate is in my hands." Jack's team was led to a holding area, but not one of imprisonment. It was luxurious by human standards, with tall windows that looked out over the sprawling city below. Yet there was something off about the way everything was arranged. Too quiet, too controlled. As the door closed behind them, Jack sat down, deep in thought. "We've learned more than we expected," he said softly. "The queen is powerful, but there's something about her. Something that feels off." Lieutenant Green looked out the window, her voice low. "What do you think it is, Captain?" Jack stared, out at the alien world. "I don't know yet, but I have a feeling this isn't going to be as easy as we thought." Meanwhile, in the Queen's private chambers, Ysera stood before a large mirror, staring at her reflection. Her mind raced with conflicting thoughts. The human, Captain Riker, was unlike any being she had ever encountered. She had felt something, in him, something that made her uneasy. Was it possible? Could this human truly be the one to challenge her empire? The thought stirred something deep within her, something she hadn't felt in centuries. She clenched her fists, her nails digging into her skin. "We will see, human," she whispered to the empty room. "We will see." The days that followed felt like a blur to Jack and his crew. They were kept in luxurious quarters inside the heart of the Nylaxian Palace, a vast complex of sleek metallic rooms and grand hallways. The space was silent, as if the entire place held its breath, watching their every move. The Nylaxian guards never left them alone, their piercing eyes always watching from the shadows. But Jack wasn't afraid. In fact, he felt something stirring inside him, a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced before. He had always been a soldier, trained to fight, to protect, and to lead. But this was different. The Queen's words, the way she had looked at him, had left a mark. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her empire than what they had been shown. There was something hidden, something darker, that she was trying to keep from them. One evening, as Jack sat alone in his room, staring out the window. At the alien city below, a soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. He turned quickly, surprised by the unexpected sound. "Captain," a voice whispered from the other side. It was Zara, a Nalaxian scientist they had met in passing. She was the one who had been most vocal in her support for Earth's peaceful intentions. Zara had caught Jack's attention during their initial meeting, her calm and thoughtful demeanor, a stark contrast to the arrogance of most other Nilaxians. He opened the door cautiously. "Zara?" he asked, his voice low. "What are you doing here?" She glanced around nervously before stepping inside, closing the door behind her. "I must speak with you, Captain. It is important. The Queen is hiding something that could change everything you think you know about this empire." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? What is she hiding?" Zara hesitated, her eyes flicking to the door as if ensuring they were alone. "The Queen, she has used an ancient power to build her empire, an energy force that was never meant to be controlled by any living being. It is what keeps her empire strong, invincible even. But the power is not hers. It belongs to an ancient race, long forgotten by the galaxy, the Nalaxians. They were not the first to find it." Jack listened intently, his mind racing. "What are you saying? This power? This energy? Where did it come from?" Zara lowered her voice even further. "It came from an ancient race known as the Tsithar, a civilization that predated the Nilaxians. The Tsithar were once the rulers of the galaxy, but they were destroyed when they tried to control the energy. It consumed them, leaving nothing but, ruins. The Nilaxians, in their greed, found the remnants of this power and stole it for themselves. The Queen's lineage was the first to gain control of it, and she has ruled with an iron fist ever since." Jack frowned, trying to process what Zara was telling him. "So this energy, it's not just some technology? It's something more? Something dangerous?" Zara nodded solemnly. "Yes, the energy is alive. It feeds off the life force of those who wield it. The more power the Queen draws from it, the more it corrupts her. But she will never stop. The Empire cannot function without it." Jack's mind swirled with the implications. "But what does this have to do with me? Why does the Queen fear me so much?" Zara's expression darkened. "There is an ancient prophecy, one that has been passed down through generations. It speaks of a being from another world, someone who will challenge the Queen's control over the energy, someone whose presence will disrupt the balance of power. That being is you, Captain Riker." Jack took a step back, his heart pounding. "Me? But why? I'm just a human soldier. How could I—" Zara held up her hand, silencing him. "You are more than just a soldier. The Tsithar's energy, whatever it is, recognizes something in you. I don't understand it completely, but I believe it has to do with your ancestry. You are connected to this power in a way that no one else is. And the Queen, she feels it. That is why she trembled when she saw you. She knows that you could be the one to bring down her empire." Jack stared at Zara, the weight of her words pressing down on him. "So what should I do? I can't just leave. If what you're saying is true, then Earth is in more danger than we realized." Zara nodded gravely. "You must confront the Queen. You must stop her from drawing more power from the energy. If you don't, her empire will continue to grow stronger, and soon no one will be able to stand against her. The balance of the galaxy will tip in her favor, and the Tsithar's energy will destroy everything." Jack took a deep breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. He had always known that Earth's mission was risky, but he hadn't expected it to lead to this. The fate of not just his crew, but the entire galaxy now rested in his hands. "I'll do it," Jack said finally, his voice firm with determination. "I'll stop her." Zara's eyes widened with a mix of surprise and respect. "You are brave, Captain. But be warned, this will not be easy. The Queen is more powerful than you can imagine. And even if you defeat her, the energy may not let you leave unscathed. It will take everything you have. Jack nodded, his jaw set with resolve. Then I'll give it everything I've got, for Earth, for everyone. The tension in the Nilaxian palace was thick. Jack had made his decision. He would confront Queen Ysira, the ruthless ruler of the Empire, and stop her from using the ancient energy that powered her reign. He couldn't let the Empire continue, to grow stronger, to consume everything in its path. He had to act now, before it was too late. The days leading up to his confrontation with the Queen were filled with preparation. Zara had given him as much information as she could, but there were still so many unknowns. The Queen's power was unlike anything Jack had ever faced. He had fought in battles, led troops, and stared down enemies, but this was something else. The Queen wasn't just a ruler. She was a force of nature, fed by the dark energy that had allowed her to dominate the galaxy. Jack stood in the center of his quarters, his hands clenched into fists. His team was ready, but he knew that their chances of victory were slim. Queen Ysira had never been defeated before. Her empire had crushed every enemy it had encountered, and she had a reputation for being merciless. Yet Jack felt a strange sense of calm. There was something inside him, a quiet confidence, that told him he could win. He had to. Zara arrived at his door shortly before he was to meet the Queen. Her face was pale, but there was a look of determination in her eyes. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice soft. Jack nodded, though his thoughts were elsewhere. "I have no choice. If we don't stop her now, there won't be anything left to save." Zara glanced around the room as if searching for something that wasn't there. "The Queen is dangerous, Captain. Even if you defeat her, the energy she controls will not be easily stopped. But if anyone can do it, it's you." Jack's gaze hardened. "I don't care about the energy. I care about the lives it's destroying, the lives of my people. That's why I'm doing this." Zara gave a small nod, but her eyes were filled with doubt. "Just be careful, and remember you're not alone in this." The two of them walked to the throne room together, flanked by Jack's crew and the silent Nilaxian guards. As they entered, the massive doors creaked shut behind them, sealing them in with the Queen. Queen Ysira sat upon her throne, her posture regal and imposing, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes, a trace of nervousness that Jack had not seen before. She had been confident, even arrogant, but now something had shifted. Perhaps she, too, could feel the weight of what was about to happen. "Captain Riker," she said, her voice calm but filled with authority. "I knew you would come. I knew you would try to challenge me." Jack stepped forward, his gaze never leaving hers. "Your reign is over, Queen Ysira. Your empire is built on stolen power, and I won't let you use it to destroy more lives. The galaxy won't be your empire any longer." The Queen's eyes flashed with fury, and for a moment, Jack thought she might strike him down right there. But instead she stood, her tall figure casting a shadow over the room. "You think you can defeat me? You think you can stand against the might of the Nilaxian Empire?" "I don't need to defeat you," Jack said, his voice steady. "I just need to stop you from using the energy. I don't want your throne. I don't want your empire. I want freedom for every world you've crushed under your rule." The Queen's lips curled into a bitter smile. "You have no idea what you're up against, human. This energy is what makes me immortal. It is what makes me the ruler of the galaxy. Without it, I would be nothing." Jack's mind raced. He had to find a way to stop her without giving in to the Queen's terrifying power. There had to be a way to weaken her without destroying everything. Then, it hit him. The energy was alive, Zara had said. If he could disconnect the Queen from it, If he could sever the bond between her and the power, maybe she would lose her strength. But that would mean getting close to her, something that seemed impossible. The Queen's energy was all around her, and it protected her like an invisible shield. It was clear that the Queen would not back down. She had built her entire existence around this energy, and she would fight to keep it. The battle began, but it was nothing like Jack had imagined. As he approached the Queen, he could feel the power of the energy crackling in the air. It was like a storm, dark and alive, swirling around her. She reached out, her hands glowing with the same unnatural light that radiated from her eyes, and a blast of energy shot toward Jack. He barely had time to react, ducking behind a column as the blast hit the floor with a deafening explosion. Jack's crew fought back, firing their weapons, but they were no match for the Queen's soldiers, who were enhanced by the same energy. They seemed invincible, their speed and strength far beyond that of any human. The battle raged on, but Jack focused only on the Queen. He saw his chance when the Queen raised her arms, drawing more power from the energy. He charged at her, faster than he had ever moved before. As he reached her, he felt the power coursing through him, the same energy that had been inside him since the moment he stepped into her empire. It was pulling him in, drawing him closer, but Jack fought against it, his will stronger than ever. With one final push, Jack slammed his fist into the Queen's chest, where the energy seemed to be at its strongest. For a moment, everything went still. The air crackled, and the Queen's eyes widened in shock. You can't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. But it was too late. The energy flickered, then flickered out, leaving the Queen weakened and vulnerable. Her once imposing form wavered, and for the first time Jack saw fear in her eyes. "I told you," Jack said quietly. "It's over." The silence in the throne room was deafening. Jack stood over Queen Ysera, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. He could feel the weight of the moment, the gravity of what had just happened. The Queen, once an unstoppable force, was now kneeling before him, her power gone. The energy that had fueled her rule, an energy that had consumed entire civilizations, was flickering, unstable, and slipping away from her grasp. Queen Ysera's eyes were wide with disbelief, her once glowing skin now dull and lifeless. The very thing that had made her immortal, that had made her the most feared ruler in the galaxy, was now nothing more than a fading memory. For the first time in her life, she was vulnerable. You've done it," she whispered, her voice trembling. I can't feel it anymore. The power, it's gone." Jack stepped back, his heart still pounding. The energy that had once surged through her, filling her with invincible strength, was now nothing more than a distant echo. "It's over, Queen Ysera," Jack said, his voice calm but firm. "Your empire ends today." The Queen's gaze shifted, no longer filled with arrogance, but with fear. "You think you've won? You think you can just destroy everything I've built? The galaxy will never accept you. You're just a human." Jack didn't flinch. "I'm not here for power, Ysera. I'm here to stop the suffering. I'm here to make sure no one else has to live under the shadow of your empire." Her eyes narrowed, the last remnants of her defiance fighting to remain. But Jack could see the truth in her eyes now. She was broken. Her empire was crumbling, and she had no more strength to hold it together. Behind them, the sounds of battle still echoed through the palace. The Queen's soldiers had been caught off guard by the sudden loss of their Queen's power. They were confused, disorganized, and some had already begun to retreat. The once feared army that had conquered countless worlds was now falling apart, its foundation shattered. Jack had expected resistance, but the Queen's downfall had caused more than just a physical collapse. It had thrown everything into chaos. Zara entered the throne room quietly, her face tense with concern. "Captain," she said, her voice low, We've lost control of the palace. The soldiers are abandoning their posts. The Empire is crumbling, but it's not over yet. The remaining commanders are trying to rally the troops. They might not give up without a fight. Jack turned to her, his mind racing. We need to move quickly. We have to make sure this doesn't turn into a war. We can't afford to let the Empire fall into chaos. Zara nodded. I agree. We must act fast. If we leave now, we can head to the Central Command and broadcast a message to the rest of the Empire. If they see their queen has fallen and the truth is revealed, they may surrender. Jack didn't hesitate. Let's go. As they left the throne room, Jack's mind raced. The queen's downfall had come faster than he had ever expected, and now the Nilaxian Empire was teetering on the edge of destruction. But he couldn't allow the remnants of the Empire to wage a civil war. If they did, the galaxy would be thrown into chaos once again. He had to make sure that this was the end of the Empire, not just the end of its queen. The palace was in turmoil. Soldiers ran through the corridors, some shouting orders, others fleeing. Jack's team fought their way through, determined to reach the Central Command. Every step felt like it could be their last. The Nilaxians were fierce warriors, but without the Queen's energy to guide them, they were nothing more than disorganized soldiers in a falling empire. As they reached the Central Command, Jack was met by an unexpected sight. The remaining Nilaxian commanders were gathered in a large chamber, arguing fiercely. They hadn't yet realized that their queen had been defeated. Their eyes turned to Jack as he entered, their expressions filled with confusion and suspicion. You, one of the commanders began, his voice shaking with anger. What have you done to the queen? Where is she? Why are we under attack? Jack stepped forward, his voice clear and commanding. Your queen is gone. She has fallen. The energy that gave her power is no more. It is time to end this war. The empire you serve is built on lies and destruction. I am here to offer you a choice. Surrender and save what's left of your people, or continue fighting and watch your empire crumble. The commanders exchanged uneasy glances. Some looked to each other, unsure of what to do. The truth was clear to them now, but they had spent their lives serving the queen, fighting for the empire. Giving up would mean abandoning everything they had ever known. One of the commanders, an older Nilaxian with battle-worn armor, stepped forward. You speak of surrender, but what happens then? The empire has existed for centuries. We cannot simply turn away from it. We will fight. We will rebuild. Jack's gaze hardened. Rebuilding an empire based on power and fear is not the answer. You can start over, but it must be with peace, not destruction. The galaxy cannot survive under the rule of fear anymore. If you continue this fight, you will destroy everything. The room fell silent. The tension hung heavy in the air, and for a moment, Jack thought the commanders might turn on him. But then, one by one, they began to lower their weapons. The decision was made. The empire that had once seemed invincible was finally crumbling from within. We surrender, the older commander said, his voice heavy with the weight of his decision. The empire ends here. Jack nodded, his expression softening. Then let's rebuild. Together. With the surrender of the Nilaxian commanders, the last remnants of the empire's resistance melted away. News of Queen Asira's fall spread quickly throughout the galaxy, and within days, planets under the queen's rule began to rebel. The once feared empire was now nothing more than a shattered remnant of its former self. For Jack and his crew, it was a hard-won victory. The galaxy was free from the queen's rule, but the work wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead. Rebuilding. The worlds the empire had crushed. But Jack knew that the hardest part was behind them. The Nilaxians would have to learn to live in peace, just as humans had done, and that was a battle in its own right. As Jack looked out at the stars, he couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, in a long while, he felt like the galaxy might just have a chance to heal. The days following the surrender of the Nilaxian commanders were filled with uncertainty. The empire that had once controlled vast swathes of the galaxy was now in pieces. The once mighty Queen Isira was no more, and her empire had crumbled beneath the weight of her ambition. Yet even in the face of such upheaval, there was hope. Jack Riker had done what no one thought possible. He had toppled a queen, shattered an empire, and freed countless worlds from the grip of fear and tyranny. But now came the harder part: rebuilding. The first few days after the surrender were a blur. Jack and his team had worked tirelessly to help the remaining Nilaxian commanders establish a new order, one built on peace and cooperation rather than conquest and control. It wasn't easy. Many of the Nilaxians had spent their entire lives under the Queen's rule, their loyalty to her unshakable. But as the truth of her fall spread, so did the realization that there was no going back. The empire that had once seemed invincible was now a shadow of its former self. Jack stood on the balcony of the palace, looking out over the city below. It was a strange sight, an alien world, but one that was slowly beginning to heal. The buildings that had once been symbols of oppression now stood as reminders of a dark past. But there was change in the air. People were coming together, talking, rebuilding. The streets were quieter, calmer. It felt like a new beginning. Behind him, Zara approached, her footsteps light on the smooth stone floor. She had been with him since the start of this journey, and now together. They were witnessing the beginning of something new. "It's hard to believe it's over," Zara said, her voice soft. "I never imagined that the Empire would fall so quickly. After everything we've seen, I thought it would take years for them to surrender." Jack nodded. "It happened faster than I expected, too. But I think the Nilaxians were ready for change. They just needed someone to show them that there was a different way." Zara smiled slightly. "And you did that, Captain. You gave them hope. You gave them a chance to choose their own future." Jack turned to face her, his expression serious. "It wasn't just me. It was all of us. We couldn't have done it without your help. Without you, this empire would have never fallen." Zara looked away, her eyes momentarily distant. "I still can't believe it, though. For centuries, the Nilaxians have ruled with fear. To see it all fall apart in such a short time, it's almost surreal." Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice steady. "It's not surreal, Zara. It's real, and it's just the beginning. The Nilaxians have a long road ahead of them, but they can change. And I believe they will." Zara looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You're right. There's hope now. There's a chance for a new future." The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, and Jack turned to see Lieutenant Green walking toward them. "Captain," she called out, her expression focused. "We've received word from the rest of the galaxy. The news of the Queen's fall is spreading fast. Some of the other systems are already offering assistance. They want to help rebuild." Jack's heart lifted at the news. "That's good to hear. We'll need all the help we can get," Sarah continued, her voice filled with optimism. "The Nilaxian people are ready to start working together. Many of them are already reaching out to the other species they once conquered, offering apologies and extending the hand of peace." Jack nodded, his eyes narrowing with thought. "That's the first step. The Nilaxians will have to prove themselves, but they've made the right choice by embracing peace. Now we need to help them rebuild the trust that was broken." As they stood there, talking about the future, the doors to the balcony opened again, and Admiral Thomas stepped inside. His face was grave, but there was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Captain, there's something you need to see." Jack followed him through the halls, his thoughts racing. What else could be happening now? Had something gone wrong? They reached a large chamber in the center of the palace, where a large screen was displaying a live broadcast from a distant planet. The broadcast was from Earth. Jack's heart skipped a beat as he recognized the familiar face of President Catherine Morales, the leader of Earth's government. "Captain Riker," the president said, her voice calm but filled with pride, "I wanted to personally congratulate you on your victory. You have done something that no one thought possible, and you've secured the future of countless worlds. Earth stands with you and will continue to support the rebuilding efforts in the Nalaxian system." Jack stood there, stunned. He had never expected this kind of acknowledgement. Earth had been watching, supporting them from afar, but now it seemed like the entire galaxy was recognizing what they had achieved. "Thank you, President Morales," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. "We couldn't have done it without the support of Earth and all the other systems that believed in peace. This is just the beginning. We have a long road ahead, but I believe we can do it. Together." The broadcast ended, and Jack stood still for a moment, taking it all in. The Nilaxians, once feared and hated across the galaxy, were now working toward a future of peace. Earth, his home, had supported them from the shadows, and now they were all united in this new journey. As the room quieted, Jack looked around at his team. He saw the faces of those who had fought alongside him, those who had helped make this victory possible. They had all taken risks, faced dangers, and made sacrifices. And now, they had won. "We've done it," Jack said softly, his voice filled with a quiet pride. "But this is just the beginning. There's a whole galaxy out there, and we've only just started to rebuild. There's hope for everyone now." Zara smiled, her eyes filled with warmth. "Yes, Captain. A new dawn is coming." Jack turned his gaze back to the horizon, watching as the first light of a new day began to rise over the Nilaxian capital. The darkness of the past was fading, and a new future was beginning to take shape. There was still much work to be done, but for the first time, Jack felt a true sense of hope for the galaxy. A hope that had been long lost under the shadow of fear. And as the sun rose over the city, Jack knew one thing for certain. This was the start of something greater than any one person, any one empire. It was the beginning of a new era.